Welcome everyone to another episode of Fins Nation. I'm your host, Louis Sung, and today we're going to be discussing how the Miami Dolphins measure up to the rest of the AFC East as it currently stands. Granted, there are still a lot of improvements to be made all over the place, but there is already talk ranking the teams in the AFC East against each other. So we're going to talk about that, because one of the things that were talked about in OnlyFins was how do the Miami Dolphins wide receivers core rank against the other teams in the AFC East, like the Buffalo Bills with Stefan Diggs? How do they compete with the New York Jets, who are adding a lot of weapons for the impending trade of Aaron Rodgers? How does all that go down? And we'll discuss all of that. But first, this show is brought to you by PrizePicks.com. PrizePicks.com is the revolutionary fantasy platform where you can now pick up to 6 different players across professional sports leagues, whether that's the NFL, the NBA, the MLB, one of each. It's up to you. All you have to do is choose the over or the under on those individual players' fantasy projections, whether that's individual stats or the classic fantasy point projections. They'll give you free squares, special Taco Tuesday promos, Flex Friday specials to where you can get your money back if you lose, or multiply the amount of money you can normally win. So with offers like that, it's hard to justify not signing up. So use the promo code FIVE, that's FIVE, and they will match up to $100 on your initial deposit when you sign up. Again, that's FIVE, FIVE. Go to PrizePicks.com, get started winning today, and get some extra cash in your pocket. And if you are a South Florida resident that is looking to protect your home or business with impact-rated windows and doors, make sure you contact All Pro Construction Builders. All Pro Construction Builders specialize in impact window and door installations for residential and commercial properties, and they are a state-certified, licensed, and insured general contractor that services Miami-Dade, Monroe, and Broward counties. So basically, if you live in South Florida, they've got your back. They only use top-quality products that are locally made. They are a family-owned and operated business, and you will only deal with the owner from start to finish. They offer competitive and affordable pricing, as well as 100% financing with no upfront costs or down payment. So if you are looking for a trustworthy and reliable contractor who offers quality service, make sure you contact All Pro Construction Builders. They will provide you with a free estimate and help you protect your home in less than 8 weeks. Call Danny at 305-484-4429 and make sure to mention 5 Reasons Sports to get a 10% discount on your estimate. Again, you call Danny at 305-484-4429. Contact All Pro Construction Builders and get yourself started protecting your home or commercial business with impact-rated windows and doors. So let me just give a little bit of context into why we're having this discussion right now. Because some of the things happening in OnlyFins, which, by the way, the link to the Discord server is in the description below. It's just $3 a month to have some of the best Dolphins talk that you can possibly have with fellow Dolphins fans everywhere, including getting insider information from the 3 yards per carry crew. So you're not going to want to miss out on that. But with that being said, some of the discussions that were being had were regarding the possibility of the Miami Dolphins trading for Stefan Diggs by offering Jalen, Waddle, and a 3rd-round draft pick. This came from a Buffalo Bills fan, and so the implication there is that Stefan Diggs is a better player than Jalen Waddle. Now, it's hard for me to argue that in a vacuum. Stefan Diggs is a bona fide superstar wide receiver. His arrival in Buffalo seemed to coincide with Josh Allen's breakout as an elite quarterback. So you could argue you can't have one without the other, at least for now you can. But the simple fact of the matter is, how does the Miami Dolphins wide receiver core measure up to the likes of the Buffalo Bills, the New England Patriots, and the New York Jets? Obviously, when it comes to the New England Patriots, it's very difficult to argue that the Dolphins don't have a better wide receiver core. Because just on its face, just on paper, obviously the 2 headliners are Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Both of them could be number 1 wide receivers for any team. Obviously, Tyreek Hill was a number 1 wide receiver for a very long time. And before Tyreek arrived in Miami, Jalen Waddle was basically projected to be the Miami Dolphins' number 1 wide receiver. He was the number 1 wide receiver for the time that he was here without Tyreek. So now you bring in the New England Patriots, and just looking at their roster on its face, obviously the roster is not exactly loaded with talent at that particular position, and it does have an effect on Mac Jones. I have to be fair about it, because if we're going to give a bunch of weapons to Tua Tagovailoa and say that he's really good, well, you kind of have to look at it in the same vein for Mac Jones, right? We have to be fair, we have to be objective. So who does Mac Jones have to throw the ball to? He has Lynn Bowden Jr., I'm sure everybody remembers his name, he's still there. Ty Montgomery, Devontae Parker, Matthew Slater, he's been in the league for 16 years. Juju Smith-Schuster's there now. Tyquan Thornton and Kendrick Bourne, Trey Nixon, Raleigh Webb. So none of those names are like particularly impressive. I mean, Juju Smith-Schuster has a history of being good. We all know what Devontae Parker does. Lynn Bowden Jr., Matthew Slater, Tyquan Thornton. I mean, I guess we can look at Ty Montgomery. Like all these guys, and yeah, they just signed Mike Gesicki. Okay, well, I guess you can count him as a wide receiver, technically speaking, and he's going to pair up with Hunter Henry. But that doesn't mean the wide receiver core itself is all that special. But now let's take a look at the Buffalo Bills. And there is a lot of talk about the possibility of DeAndre Hopkins landing in Buffalo. Now, if you were to put DeAndre Hopkins with Stefan Diggs, it's hard to argue that the Buffalo Bills would not have the best duo of wide receivers, right? Because those two have so much star power attached to themselves, even more so than Jalen Waddle. Because if you had to choose between Jalen Waddle and Stefan Diggs or DeAndre Hopkins in a vacuum, specifically in a vacuum, let's ignore what the quarterback situation is, let's ignore what the scheme is, let's ignore the coaching staff. In a vacuum, who is the better player if you had to pick between the three of them? So you can only pick two of them. And who's the guy going to be left out in the cold? Probably it would be Jalen Waddle, but only because that's not a slight to Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle is a fantastic player, but Stefan Diggs and DeAndre Hopkins have a history of being elite players, straight up elite, like the best of the best. And so now let's look at the Buffalo Bills as they stand. This is before the DeAndre Hopkins trade, right? So now they have added Trent Sherfield to that mix, and Sherfield being a blocker, that doesn't mean he's going to be that great as a weapon per se, but they still have Cole Beasley, and Josh Allen already knows he can throw to Cole Beasley whenever he wants. He's a very reliable weapon for them on that front. Gabe Davis is still there. Stefan Diggs is still there. So, but that wide receiver core by itself is not that impressive, right? Stefan Diggs is the headliner for sure, not even guessing. But if they were able to trade for DeAndre Hopkins, you would immediately have an incredibly dangerous wide receiver duo, possibly even more so than Tyreek and Jalen Waddle. So that's something the Dolphins have to watch out for, because if we're talking about just pure rankings, they would immediately jump down to second in the AFC East for wide receiver duos. Which brings us to the New York Jets. Now, the New York Jets are obviously trying to load up in anticipation of Aaron Rodgers arriving. Obviously, the Green Bay Packers are holding up the deal because they want a specific price tag for Aaron Rodgers, and I do not think they are going to let him go without getting exactly what it is they want. But as it stands right now, who do the New York Jets have to throw to? Who does the incoming Aaron Rodgers have to throw to? There's a lot of good names on here, don't get me wrong. Corey Davis. They just added Allen Lazard because presumably Aaron Rodgers wanted him there. Garrett Wilson is a very strong player. So if that's what you're doing and that's what you're planning, that's a very strong group. But who is the headliner there? Is it Allen Lazard? The Jets just traded Elijah Moore and a late round draft pick for another draft pick from the Cleveland Browns. So the Browns are loading up to give Deshaun Watson more to play with. But again, I guess the headliner for the Jets would be Garrett Wilson. Unless, of course, they somehow manage to land Odell Beckham Jr. And that, I guess, is where the star power comes in. But that star power comes with an asterisk. Because even if you do manage to get Odell Beckham Jr., how long has it been since Odell Beckham Jr. has played in the NFL? How long has it been since he actually had the opportunity to show that he is still an elite level wide receiver? Mind you, he played well with the Rams, but he was never able to get back onto the field. That injury took a lot out of him. And so now he's looking for a new home. It could be with Aaron Rodgers. And if he can get back to form, he would be a really good weapon for him to play with. He would probably be one of the best weapons that Aaron Rodgers has ever had in his career. And it has to be near the tail end, the twilight years of his career, which is sad in a way. But does Odell Beckham Jr. make them a better wide receiver core than the Miami Dolphins? I can't say that with any kind of certainty. Because if I had to pick between Tyreek Hill and Odell Beckham Jr., I'm picking Tyreek Hill. And the argument could be made that Jalen Waddle is a better option than Garrett Wilson. So at least the top 2 wide receivers, I would still pick the Miami Dolphins. Now, if you want to go with Allen Lazard, which is funny because we keep hearing about how the Green Bay Packers never gave Aaron Rodgers any weapons to play with, and they immediately go and get his weapon from Green Bay. And supposedly they also want to grab Randall Cobb as well. So if they do that, so are they becoming the New York Packers? It's kind of funny to joke about and meme about, but if you really think about it, aside from Odell Beckham Jr. and Garrett Wilson, the New York Jets are not just absolutely loaded with talent at the wide receiver position. Yeah, Denzel Mims, Elijah Moore is gone, Corey Davis is still there. No, it's a good core, don't get me wrong. It's good players, but are they better than the Miami Dolphins? So now this brings us to the actual Miami Dolphins roster. So let's just take a quick look at this, okay? We already know about Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. That's not even a question at this point. They're the headliners, and they're what makes them ranked so high, because those two by themselves are so dangerous, and they proved how dangerous they can be when Tua Tagovailoa is the one throwing them the ball. So now we just parted ways with Trent Sherfield. We still have Cedric Wilson. Now, I really feel like that we're not giving Cedric Wilson any credit because, again, we initially thought he was going to be the guy along with Jalen Waddle before the Tyreek trade happened. Before the Tyreek Hill trade happened, we were looking at Cedric Wilson and thinking, okay, this is a pretty good move. He was really good with the Dallas Cowboys. And again, a lot of Cowboys people were upset that the Dolphins had managed to scoop him away from them. So now for us to look at Cedric Wilson and say, well, you know what, you're not that great. We're doing revisionist history. We were excited about Cedric Wilson. And I got into this big debate with my co-host for Pulsifins Nation, Ron Caniff, which, by the way, if you haven't checked out that show, you absolutely should because it's still one heck of a doozy. We argued for a long time about Trent Sherfield and Cedric Wilson. But we're playing revisionist history when we say that we don't think Cedric Wilson is that great because we had Trent Sherfield instead. Understand, and this is something that Alfredo Arteaga pointed out to us while we were doing the show. He was in the chat when we were doing it. Trent Sherfield started getting snaps because Cedric Wilson broke his ribs. So somebody had to step up to the plate. If it wasn't going to be Sherfield, it was going to be River Craycraft. If it wasn't going to be River Craycraft, it was probably going to be Braylon Sanders. Wes Welker made it abundantly clear that Eric Ezukanma was not ready for the work that he was being asked to do. That's why we didn't get to see him this season, really. I think he managed to play, maybe a few snaps all season long. But he didn't really make that much of an impact. But Cedric Wilson is still good. I think as a number 3 wide receiver, that's a very solid option. So I feel like we are not giving Cedric Wilson nearly enough credit. Certainly not as much as we should be. We already know River Craycraft can play because we've seen him do it. He was the guy who caught one of the touchdowns during the Baltimore Ravens comeback. So he obviously had to be doing something right. Braxton Berrios, could he be in play as the number 3 wide receiver? Or at the very least, he's a number 4. And again, this former UM star, everybody loves him. He's a punt returner, a really good returner, and he could be a slot guy. People have been talking about it, that he could be the actual slot receiver for the Miami Dolphins because supposedly we don't really have one. Because Tyreek and Jalen Waddle are the ones who are running across the boundaries. All right, you want to make that argument? Sure. And we all still saw what Eric Ezukanma did in the preseason. He has a lot of athletic ability. It's just that Wes Welker felt like he wasn't getting the routes down. He wasn't getting the timing down. He wasn't getting the technique down. Maybe he just takes a little bit longer. Obviously, I know the Dolphins better than I know the Jets, and I know the Buffalo Bills, and I know the New England Patriots. And perhaps there are a lot of other Patriots and Buffalo Bills guys out there who would argue that they don't know anything about Eric Ezukanma and what he offers, that maybe there are Jets people who would look at Braxton Berrios and be like, yeah, he wasn't anything special. Maybe there are some New England guys who would look at Braxton Berrios and act like, I don't know why anybody's so excited about him. He didn't really do anything when he was with the Patriots. But just based on what I'm seeing right now, based on the entirety of the rosters as a whole, as they stand today, before any other weird trades happen, I'm still going to give the Miami Dolphins the edge at the wide receiver position in the AFC East. Now, if the trade happens and the Buffalo Bills manage to get their hands on DeAndre Hopkins, that will change, and I'll drop the Dolphins down to second in that department. but that still hasn't happened yet, so I'm still putting the Miami Dolphins number one. I don't see any weird trades happening where Stefan Diggs becomes a Dolphin and the Buffalo Bills manage to get their hands on Jalen Waddle. Obviously, it's all speculation, but that's kind of what Fins Nation is all about, right? Things just happening and people commenting on it. So now we talk about quarterback. Well, that one's a little easier. Who's the best quarterback in the AFC East? Right now is Josh Allen. And then I would put Tua Tagovailoa second. I would put Mac Jones third, and I would put Zach Wilson fourth. Now, when the Jets inevitably get Aaron Rodgers, just based on what their careers look like, just what the reputations are, I would have to put Tua at third because he's going to be behind Aaron Rodgers and Josh Allen. But I'm not putting Tua so far below Aaron Rodgers that it's not close. Aaron Rodgers in the twilight of his career, I would still make the argument that Tua is the better option because at least with Tua, you have a chance at a long-term future. Aaron Rodgers is getting ready to retire. This is basically his retirement tour. He had to convince himself not to retire to go to the Jets. So I would put Aaron Rodgers better than Tua currently, but if Aaron Rodgers continues down this downward spiral, I would quickly put Tua back in second place, even if Aaron Rodgers is a first-ballot Hall of Famer. At running back is a little difficult to judge because there's a lot of players that the Miami Dolphins have that, they're good. Again, Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson with Savon Ahmed, I think that was the best move for the Dolphins. Keep the continuity at running back. They're both really good players. They both could have run for 1,000 yards if they wanted, so that's really good. For the Jets, Michael Carter, Breece Hall is an incredible player. We've seen him do it. Zonovan Knight. And then, of course, Buffalo Bills just signed Damian Harris from the New England Patriots. And James Cook, who is related to Dalvin Cook, who Dolphins fans everywhere were desperately pounding the table for. And, oh, by the way, Duke Johnson is also a member of the Buffalo Bills right now. We know how everybody felt about Duke Johnson the 1 year he was in Miami. He was good. So, including Damian Harris, I would probably have to put the Buffalo Bills on top of the Dolphins. Breece Hall is really good too, so I might be able to put them on top of the Miami Dolphins as well at running back. But the Patriots, I don't think I can make that argument because I'm looking at the New England Patriots running backs right now. Ramondre Stevenson, James Robinson, J.J. Taylor, Pierre Strong. Yeah, I mean, all right. Ramondre Stevenson is good. James Robinson's pretty good. I think the Dolphins were looking at potentially getting him not too long ago. I would put the Patriots neck and neck with the Dolphins. But again, that doesn't mean they're bad running backs. It just means that they don't have that star power. Tight end, no question, the Patriots have a better tight end group than the Dolphins right now. Hunter Henry, just by himself, is better than Durham Smythe and Eric Saubert, who just showed up in Miami. Obviously, with the Buffalo Bills, Dawson Knox, a solid weapon for Josh Allen. He's been incredible for them. As for the Jets, I mean, CJ Uzomah has a reputation, but I don't know if I could put them. I don't know where I would rank them because, quite frankly, I don't know very much about the Jets tight ends. So, again, but we consider tight end a weakness for the Dolphins. And I'm not even going to talk about the offensive line because that's just going to open up another can of worms that I really don't want to discuss. The Dolphins don't have a good offensive line. They don't. So I'm not even going to try to rank them. I'm not going to put them last, but I'm going to say that they're not great. Maybe we'll get into the defense for the next show. Because this is why the Dolphins are loading up on defense, folks. Because you can see the other AFC East teams. They are loading up on offense. They are getting ready for everybody to make a massive run. So that's why we need the likes of Jalen Ramsey, David Long Jr., and all this investment, along with Vic Fangio being the defensive coordinator. It's because of these reasons. So get ready. It's going to be a bloodbath in the AFC East this year. So we'll rank some more as the offseason progresses. But for right now, we'll just see where it goes from there. So once again, I want to thank everybody for joining me for this show. And if you haven't done so already yet, go to prizepicks.com, use the promo code 5, that's FIVE, and they will match up to $100 on your initial deposit when you sign up using our promo code. The special Taco Tuesday promos, Flex Friday is quickly approaching, so make sure you get into prizepicks.com, get your free $100 when you deposit up to $100 back. So that way you can go ahead and start making some money on their dime before you have to dig into your dimes. Again, that's prizepicks.com. Use the promo code 5, that's FIVE. And if you need to protect your home or business with impact-rated windows and doors, contact All Pro Construction Builders that specialize in impact window and door installation. Call Danny at 305-484-4429 and make sure to mention 5 Reasons Sports to get a 10% discount on your free estimate and get yourself started in less than 8 weeks. They offer competitive and affordable pricing as well as 100% financing with no upfront cost or down payment. They use only quality products that are locally made. They can help you out in Miami-Dade, Broward County, Monroe County. They're all over South Florida. So again, call Danny at 305-484-4429. All Pro Construction Builders. Mention 5 Reasons Sports to get a 10% discount on your free estimate and get yourself started today. So that's going to be it for this show. We will see you all tomorrow for another episode of Fins Nation.